Throw it out now to Jane Wells, who is in San Diego. She is with Republican Representative Issa. Over to you, Jane.
Hi, Mandy. Yes, we talk a lot about California, but one of the biggest changes coming is that Congressman Issa will now take the helm of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, and it is an exciting night to talk about realistically reining in government.
Well, you have had so many things you want to talk about and investigate, where the stimulus money went, climate change claims, Fannie and Freddie, the Fed needs to be more transparency. Give them your top 2 or 3 priorities.
Well, we're a committee that does 2 things. In real time, we work with IGs to try to prevent problems.
Inspector General.
Inspector Generals. One of the #1 priorities is there are 74 Inspector Generals. I want to make sure that they have free and full access to the information. They're appointed by the president. They should have full access to the information. They should not be afraid of being fired for uncovering waste, and they should all have subpoena power. They should have subpoena power. Only one of 74 does. That's an easy one for the president to do because transparency is what he said he wants to do. Obviously, Freddie and Fannie, these are entities that have already lost forever $130 billion of your tax money. Before they lose double or triple that, which is likely to happen, we need to find out how we should reform them going forward, which realistically means that's the one thing in financial reform that hasn't been touched, that we're going to have an opportunity to ready aim before we fire on. And of course, health care, we have, whether it may be repealed, but if it isn't repealed, we have this huge new health care bureaucracy, and everyone knows that many of the rules passed in that bill are unenforceable. That, for example, you're not going to be able to get paid directly if you're a specialist doctor. That doesn't make any sense to assume that doctors are only going to be paid through other doctors. So there are a lot of things in that bill that we're going to have an opportunity to look at. But at the end of the day, I hope to work with all the other chairmen of all the committees of jurisdiction, have them do as much as they can, and be, to a certain extent, the committee that looks when something falls between committees.
You have called the president corrupt. What are the chances you're going to investigate him, subpoena him?
This administration is corrupt, and it's corrupt in a number of ways. And the arrogance of the Joe Sestak is a good example. It's not that they did it, it's that they didn't deny it once finally caught and said, well, everyone does it. Well, everyone may do it, but nobody should be doing it. We have Acorn. You have the president, not one federal investigation, not one federal prosecution of Acorn, even though most of the states have realized that they're guilty of voter fraud, they're guilty of a lot of other things. But remember, an administration being corrupt, it's our job to help them be less corrupt. It's not my committee's job to go after the president, but it is my committee's job to make sure that the administration doesn't waste your tax dollars.
Well, would you go after the president, though, if you felt you were being stonewalled?
Well, I expect to have answers to our questions. We have hundreds of letters that have never been answered where we're in the minority. I expect to have those answers, and I expect to work cooperatively. I got a call from Chairman Ed Towns about 30 minutes ago congratulating me on the outcome and offering a smooth transition and working together next Congress like we did this Congress, but with a change in the gavel. Ed Towns was somebody I worked with, and we didn't agree on everything, but we did work together. Our committee should hate waste, fraud, and abuse on a bipartisan basis, and I intend on continuing that tradition.
Guys, did you have some questions?
Jump in here, Congressman. Thanks for joining us today. I mean, you've got a really great list of priorities there. Nonetheless, there's a lot of cynicism out there that, in a so-called lame duck Congress, there isn't a whole lot that you can really achieve, especially if you've got a president with a veto pen. How do you get around that cynicism? How do you feel that you can really offer some solutions here?
Well, the American people expect the lame duck session to basically do a continued resolution, go home, come back with a new Congress and new priorities. If they do anything else, I think people are going to feel betrayed if what's done after an election is somehow something they weren't willing to do before. But having said that, I expect to use the entire time from next week all the way through to January when I'm sworn in, trying to prepare the transition, hire people, work with Chairman Towns to see how many people were on his staff that could be on my staff, and make sure we have continuity of the investigations and the reform. One thing that I didn't mention, you understand the post office is going to lose at least $5.5 billion this year. Our committee owns the post office. We need to see that they get back to self-sustaining profitability. And so there's lots of things that we can work on that aren't political, they're not partisan, that we need to work on every day. So I don't see the lame duck as a waste as long as we don't try to do something quick and underhanded. Just go home and plan for a slight difference, one in which Republicans and Democrats both sit at the table, something we haven't done together for 2 years.
Congressman, Jane already brought up the point. You've been a critic of the administration, obviously, for the past couple of years, but now you say oversight's not going to be overbearing. If tonight's results really are a repudiation of the president, why not just come out and say, you know what, I'm the chairman now, and we're gonna look into things that we couldn't before? Why not be candid about that?
Well, because, Carl, tonight's repudiation of his policy of sort of his way or the highway, and he's had his way. But when we talk about government, one of the things I've learned in the years I've been on government reform is that, to be honest, every president is imperial. Every administration is arrogant. Every administration covers up and hides waste, fraud, and abuse. Under President Bush, the Mineral Management Service was dysfunctional. We pointed it out, we didn't get it fixed, and the people of the Gulf paid a high price for it. So when we say we need to work together and fix this, we expect to have more cooperation from the administration than we did when we were in the minority. But at the same time, it would be disingenuous to assume that all problems in America began with President Obama 22 months ago. They didn't. Most of the problems we're fixing, in fact, he hasn't fixed, but most of them didn't begin just on his watch.
Congressman Issa,
Sure,
thank you
Jane.
very much. I appreciate you joining us.
Oh, thank you.
And it'll be interesting.